Here's a quick look at how I built this freestanding raised deck that goes next to the playhouse I'm building. I am using pressure treated 2x6 and 4x4 lumber for this build. For 2x6s, you want to use 3, 3.5 or 4-inch self-tapping deck screws to attach them to the post. So place one in the middle, and then the top and bottom screws would be about 1.5 inches in from the ends of the board to keep it from splitting. I set the size of this deck so that it would work for my needs, so you might need a smaller or a larger deck depending on how much stuff you're going to have on it. Our kids are going to be able to climb out of that hole that you see on the left from the inside of the playhouse onto the deck, so that helped me decide how to set the height of the deck. They are also going to be able to climb into the upper level of the playhouse that you'll see later on. So again, that was part of the decisions. We're going to have a slide, a little bridge, and a bunch of other stuff coming off of here. So when I was drawing up the plans, I sort of roughed in how much space I thought I needed for everything to set the size. If you want to reduce waste and costs when it comes to your lumber, you can think about the standard sizes that you can buy the 2x6s and the 4x4s in. So you could use 8-foot long 2x6s and just plan to have less cuts that way, or 4-foot high posts and just have a 4-foot high deck so that you can use 2 4x4 posts instead. Also, another rule of thumb to remember when you're drawing up your plans is that you will need a third post or another post for every 9 feet of 2x6. The longest side of my freestanding deck is about 8.5 feet, so I threw that third post in the middle just to be extra safe. I probably didn't need it, but I tend to over-engineer things. I say that in my videos all the time, so just so you know why I added mine. With the 2x6 bands wrapped around the top and the bottom of the 4x4 post, I was ready to mark for my joist. So the joists need to be every 16 inches. I use a square to help me mark for where those joists are going to be. It just makes it easier when I'm assembling things later. Make sure when you install those joists that you have it level with the top of the deck so that you are ready to install your deck boards. Okay guys, so I am getting ready to paint the deck boards for this little raised play deck area, and I just want to point out how I've laid out the boards. So I want to paint the bottom first so that I can install them, and I can paint the top when it's already on. So in this case, this is the bottom, so I've got it laid out so that I can paint all of the bottoms from the other side of this fence. And if you'll notice, I've got the graying on these boards all cupped like a bowl, cupped up. So that's going to be the bottom. If in the future, after years of water damage and sun exposure, these boards want to try to warp, they're naturally going to want to try to warp in the direction of their grain. So they're going to want to kind of bowl up. So I'm going to lay that down to help fight that and keep these boards flatter. So and also the way I put the screws in is going to be another measure to prevent that too. But I just wanted to point that out before I paint these. So I used 2.5-inch deck screws to attach the boards to each of the bands around the outside and the joist. Normally I would use a framing nail or something to keep the boards separated while I set each deck board into place, but I was feeling kind of lazy that day, so I just used a stir stick, a paint stir stick, to separate the boards and keep them evenly separated as I went along. I press with the side of my foot really hard against the board as I'm screwing it down to fight any warping or natural bowing that happens with a 1x deck board. They tend to be pretty warped when you buy them in the store, even when you shop for the best ones you can find. And one last thing I want to show you guys before I put the deck boards down on this lower level. I filled in some dirt around the edges to try to keep all of the rainwater towards the middle of the area. I live in a hurricane prone zone. We get huge thunderstorms sometimes. So I don't want this to fill up with water. And in the event that it does rain really hard, I want the water to stay away from the edges as much as possible and sort of direct down. I've drilled a couple drainage holes on the sides I'm gonna fill in this area in the middle, not all the way up, but just with maybe like an inch of gravel. Also to keep down the bugs that like to live in exposed dirt like this. I'm gonna put like an inch of gravel in here, and I'm gonna put a bunch of gravel out here. So this is all drainage that I've set up for any rainwater around this raised platform. So depending on how whether or not you've got your raised platform next to something, if it's out in the middle of your yard, you wouldn't have an issue with drainage like this. You still might want to put a little holes. There are a couple little holes on the outside just to let the water drain out more easily. The bottom of this frame is not structural, so putting some holes in it isn't going to weaken the system. The boards on the bottom actually just hold the posts together, hold the posts square to each other, and support any deck that you might have on it. So a few little holes isn't gonna mess with that, so don't worry about that. The thing is, you just want to not have standing water building up underneath this, and an area for a lot of mosquitoes or little gnats and stuff to live in. So just wanted to show you that before I close it up. That's it for now. I'm moving on to the next project with this DIY playhouse. If you want to see any of the other videos, the other items that I've built for this playhouse, I'll put a link to the whole DIY playhouse playlist below.